Hello, my name is Jocelyn. I will be talking about Canto 13 today, and before I get into it, I will be giving you guys a little short summary slash intro about where we are, why it's important, and some important characters that we will meet in this section. So let's go ahead and share my screen with you guys so you have a visual, and then we'll get right to it. Let's share the Italian right here, right here. Perfect. Yes, amazing. Okay, so let's get into this. So where in the Inferno are we? We are currently in Circle 7. Circles 1 through 6 were characterized by incontinence, one of the three Aristotelian categories, which is defined as lack of measure. This is also considered upper hell. Once we reach Circle 7, it is lower hell, and it is characterized by malice as which is the second Aristotelian category for hell, and the third one is bestiality, and according to Professor Humberto, it is most likely associated with the deepest part of hell, but never explicitly mentioned in the book. What circle specifically are we in? So the breakdown of the subcircles is according to Canto 11 and also according to the course of the Inferno. The circle of violence, Circle 7, is the circle of violence is broken into three subcircles, which then has their own subcircles. The first subcircle was violence against others and their possession. The second subcircle is violence against yourself and your possessions, which is the one we are currently in. And the final violence subcircle is violence against God and his possessions possessions. So what subcircle are we in? The subcircle of the violent against themselves and their possessions. So what is the sin? It's poetic justice, or it's contrapasso, and the relationship between the two. So, sin is suicide, violence against himself, and the squanderers. However, the squanderers are mentioned very fast, very briefly, as they are also running through the forest. So very fast, the sinners, the squanderers are running fast, and then it's not very detailed in this canto. It's mostly focused on the violence against the self. And what is the poetic justice of this canto? The souls of the suicides are turned into twisted, speechless trees. They're not smooth branches, but knotted and twisted, as seen here. It says, but knotted and twisted. And it is important to mention the same way that the trees, the sinners, are knotted and twisted, so is the language in this canto. Let's look at, for example, Canto 20, lines 25 through 27. My belief is that he believed that I must believe that so many voices among those thickets came forth from people hidden from us. So it's not very clear, it's very twisted, and reflects again how Dante likes to match the sinners, the type of sin it is, to his poetic lyricals, making it a book for everybody. And the trees can only speak or express themselves when the branch is broken, causing them pain and bleeding. The harpies also tear at their leaves, inflicting constant pain, and we have a description of the harpies in this section. Their wings are broad, their necks and faces human, their feet have claws, and their great bellies are feathered. They utter laments on the strange trees. So once again, describing the harpies, very fearsome sight and not one that I would personally want to be picking at me. And this is important because in life they rejected their human bodies and destroyed them through suicide. So then they end up becoming trees, which I'll touch on later, is another perversion of theology, another perversion. The suicide people thought they could end their pain by killing themselves, but instead are constantly now in pain. So again, there's this little bit of poetic justice. In death, they are denied human form. Their speech is only possible through suffering, just as their final act in life was through pain. It is also important to note that the development of the human soul is introduced and shown how the order is twisted, so instead of it being plant to animal to man, it is now man to eventually plant, which is a perversion of medieval theology following the vibe of this canto, where it's a bunch of perversion, a bunch of twisting, matching the sinners and their sin. And then who are the main characters involved and who are the main speakers? The main speakers are, of course, Dante the traveler, the journeyer, and Dante the author, and Virgil his guide. So here, Virgil, his guide, is constantly being undermined. Well, throughout all of Inferno, Virgil is kind of being like slowly like picked at and prodded at to make Dante look better, especially in lines 49 through 52, which we'll see right here, where Dante, the author, is writing, but the incredibile thing in the Italian is that is so the reason that Virgil had Dante pick or break Pierre's branch is because Virgil's Aeneid was incredibile. It was not believable, highlighting the fact that Dante's work is more believable and more true than Virgil's Aeneid. So kind of like one-upping Virgil in his work. And then Dante actually does this again towards the beginning, lines 19 through 21, where he's having Virgil say, where Dante, the author, is having Virgil say, you will see that you will see things that would make you disbelieve my speech, that would make you disbelieve my poetry. So the author is having Virgil kind of undermine himself here, and also that Virgil is undermined later on with this word incredibile or unbelievable. And then Barloni, a commenter that was linked on the course schedule, says something very nice and kind of highlights what we're talking about, is that he says, the fact that a man has become a tree is termed incredibile, something that nature itself cannot accept on the basis of prior account, no matter how authoritative. But therefore, because Virgil's book is incredibile, Dante must break that branch. But the question arises, if Dante cannot believe Virgil's text, why should we believe Dante? And the answer is, any answer to this question involves the basic poetic strategies of the comedy, and foremost among them is choice of an allegorical mode in which the literal level is perceived as true, making Dante's work true, making it better in a sense than Virgil's, and which makes us as the reader also believe what's happening. Another key character in this section is Pier della Vigini, a prominent court official to Emperor Frederick II who committed suicide after being falsely accused of treason. We'll find out later on if he was falsely accused or not in Dante's opinion, who says later on, we were men and now have become plants, which is the punishment for suicide. And then another key character is not key, but very minor, is Emperor Frederick II, the last Holy Roman Emperor, who's mentioned in Canto 6 for being a heretic and who believed that the body is the only thing that mattered. So why is this passage important within the canto, the canticle, and the poem? It is important because this here, so I was assigned lines 58 through 106. And these lines, we learn more about Pierre's story, which gives us insight to the circle we were in. It highlights how souls who kill themselves are turned into trees and how the trees are punished by the harpies. And the harpies are described earlier in the book, lines 13 through 15, if you want to take a look at that. 13 through 15. And then more important information is the language is twisted, as we've seen, and I've given you multiple examples of. Virgil has Dante break off a branch, and the branch cries, why do you split me? Here is Italian for it, perché mi scanti? This is an important part of the passage, and then an important part of the passage is introduced where it's a perversion of medieval theology. We were men and now have become plants, which medieval theology has plant, animal, man. Here it is man to plant, which is again a perversion, a twisting of medieval theology. And again, in this canto specifically, it is highlighted that Dante's text is more true, more believable, and better than compared to Virgil's Aeneid. So now I'm going to quickly read the Italian for you guys, and I'm going to dive deeper into the key parts of lines 58 through 106. So let's go ahead. I'm going to be reading the Italian 58, and then we're going to go to 56. So I'll be reading from my physical copy of the book, lines 58. Io son colui che tieni ambo la chiave del cor di Federico, it che le volsi serrando e desserrando ci suave. Che dal scritto soy quasi tolsi, fedi porta al glorioso officio, tante che ne perdi le soni e polisi, le meretrici che mai di fiosi di Caesar non torsi le occhi puti, morti comuni e di la corti visio, infamio contra mi le animi tutti, e le infamiti infamarsi a gusto che lete onor tornaro in tristi luti. Line 70. Le animo mio per desdegnoso gusto, credende col more fugger desdegno, ingiusto fici mi contra mi giusto, per le nove radici di esto legno, via giorno che gia mia non rupi fedi, al mio Segnor che fu d'onor si degno, e si di voi alcun nel mondo ridi, conforti la memoria mia che giaci ancor del colpo, chi invidia la diadi un poco attisi, e poi da ciel stiasi. Desi la porta a mi, non perdi la ora, mi parla e chiedi a lui si ti piace. Ondo io a lui domandal tu ancora di qualche credi c'ha mi stas feci, che non potri tanta pieti mi accura, perchio recomensio silom ti fiaccia liberamente ciao che tua der prega, spirito incarcreto ancor ti piace, di derni come la anima si leghi in questa noci e dina si toi pois si alcuna ma di ta membra si spiaggia, allor suffo il tronco forte e poi si converti qual vento in cottal voci. Brevemente sarà risposto a voi quando si parte la anima feroci, dal corpo alla stessa si svelta, minos la manda alla settimana foci, cada in la selvi e non la parte scalta. Malia dove fortuna la balestra, chieve germaglia come grandi spalta, sorge in vermina e in pianata silvestra, le arpi passando poi di le sue foglie, fanno dolore e al dolor fenestra, come altra vermi per nostri spogli, ma non piro Chiolanca sen revista che non igioso aver ciao chiomi si togli, chi la strassenermo e per la mesta, salve sereno i nostri corpi a Pisa, schiasono al pron di umbra su molesta. So that's the Italian for the book, and now let me quickly dive into a couple of the key lines. Here in 58 through 60, I am he who held both the keys and the heart of Frederick, turning them, locking and unlocking them. The lock and keys are reference to Peter, who holds the keys to the kingdom of heaven, which is going to be later perverted and twisted into another character in the Bible, which we will soon see. And Frederick was again the last Holy Roman Emperor. So lines 61 through 63. That excluded almost everyone. This section right here, that excluded almost everyone. So he was very trusted, excluded everyone else from his secrets, implying that he did know his secrets. And he again claims that Pierre claims that he was faithful. Lines 64 through 66, the whore who never turns her sluttish eyes away from Caesar's dwelling, the common death and vice of courts. The whore is signifying envy, and the people, and Pierre basically is saying that people were envious of him and got him killed. Lines 67 through 69, this section is highlighting the fact that Pierre's story is a tragedy with the words specifically lieti and then tristi luti. It's saying it's a tragedy, it's a turning. Tornado, it's a tragedy is something happy to sad, and that is what Pierre's story is. So then we also have lines 70 through 72, which is my spirit at the taste of disdain. This section is basically highlighting that because Pierre, having experienced disdain, he attempted to separate body and soul, and this opposition action of the self against the self. So it was very contradictory, and it was just basically me against me. Line 73 through 75 basically talked about my strange new roots. I swear to you again that I never broke faith. It's just Pierre constantly saying, I never broke faith. I never broke faith. Line 76 through 78 is where Pierre's basically saying, please strengthen my memory, make it better. He wants that fame. He's always desired it, always loved it, even when he was alive. And line 79 through 70, this section right here, 79 through 90, I'm sorry, Virgil tells Dante now that it's his time to ask questions. Dante says he cannot because he's overcome with pity. And then the 50-minute signer. And then Virgil asks how the soul, because Dante can't, Virgil asks how the soul ties itself in the trees and if anyone can untie itself. And so then in lines 91 through 96, Pierre answers this question, and he basically says, he explains the process of how a suicidal soul becomes a tree here. He says when the soul departs from the body, when it's uprooted, over here, Minos then sends it to the seventh circle, which is the violent circle. And then lines 97 through 99, he continues to describe the process, saying what falls into the wood, and then it then sprouts into a tree. And so then lines 100 through 102, it grows into a shoot, 100 to 103. So then it continues to grow, and the harpies continue to feed on it. So it's this constant pain and it's a constant suffering. That is the punishment in the circle. And then lines 103 to 105, we have like the others who will come for remains, but not so. The key line here for it is not just to have what one has taken from oneself. So the reason that in this circle they're made into trees and not, they don't have their physical bodies is that it is not just a God's word, it's not just to have what you have taken from yourself. So they kill themselves, they don't get their bodies. And then finally, to end, what lines 106 through 108. So here we are getting the sense that Dante, the author, does think that Pierre did betray the emperor, because he says, here we will drag them, and through the sand wood our corpses will hang. This is an allusion, an allegory to Judas, who betrayed Christ and then afterward killed himself by hanging on a tree. And Judas, because he did betray his master, his teacher, his Lord, is being now compared or highlighted to Pierre. From Peter to Judas, it shows that Dante does believe that Pierre did indeed betray the emperor. And then finally, I only had lines 58 through 106, but to wrap up this canto, the last section of this canto basically touches upon the squanderers who are running through the forest and who are being chased by dogs, who are then attacking and tearing them apart the same way the sinners, the squanderers, tore apart their inheritance in life, the violence against their own possessions. And that is Canto 13. Thank you for listening.